Good evening, all, and welcome to Kal-bardr's Corner for this 7th episode of What Makes a Knight. I am Lord Kal-bardr Gellir, Companion of the Meridian Cross, Companion of the Argent Comet, Companion of the Argent Lamp, Companion of the Falcon's Faith, and Reaper, coming to you live, as always, from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridia's. Now, for this series, I am joined by an absolute SCA legend. You may know him from SCA Coach's Corner, or from the fighting fields of Artemisia and the known world, Duke Sean Kirkpatrick Tarragon. Good evening, Your Grace.
Good evening, Cal. As always, thank you for your efforts in making this series happen. I'd like to welcome everybody again to What Makes a Knight. I am Duke Sean. I'm from the Kingdom of Artemisia. I've been a knight for going on 34 years now. I've seen a great evolution of most of the Order of Chivalry throughout the society. And happy to be discussing topics that are not related strictly to fighting, which there's plenty of resources out there for that. But this whole series is about all the other things that make a knight that is besides fighting. And tonight, our special guest, I'm very honored to welcome my friend, my colleague, Duchess Sir Helga from the West Kingdom. Everybody says that I know everybody, but that's not true. I don't know everybody, but I know Helga, and Helga knows everybody, so that's close enough.
I don't know everybody.
Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself, Your Grace?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Helga. I'm from the West Kingdom. I am a knight, a pelican, and a royal peer, not by my own hand. So because that apparently is something that I got to clear up a lot of the times. So I am known a little bit for networking and being sassy. Also, I have been very spoiled to travel around the known world and help cultivate and create relationships, which is, I believe, the reason why my dear friend Duke Sean drugged me onto the show on a Sunday evening to have these discussions with you. So beyond that, of course, a heavy fight. I am an equestrian. I am a cute pupper owner. I will argue with anybody that my dog is the cutest because right now he's got bat ears. And then we go from there. So
wait, you're cute and a puppy owner, or you're an owner of a cute pupper?
Owner of a cute pupper. My dog is way cuter than me, just so everybody knows.
I don't know. I think there's a case to be made.
Anyway, that's a whole different show. We're gonna argue about Helga's dog and how cute it is. That new series coming to Kal-bardr's Corner soon.
I will throw down and crush this, okay? I need everybody to understand this.
I am game for let's have the cutest pet contest series. That I will host the shit out of that.
I mean, that would probably be really good for everybody. Like,
completely not just let's talk cute pets for a minute. I'm good. All right, so we'll get to planning that.
Okay.
Yeah, so tonight's topic is networking, and I think there is no doubt why we invited Helga on for this. This is a topic that I did not realize that was as needed as it was in the path to knighthood. Like I come at this from a business perspective where networking is important. As a project manager, I always say that I don't know all the things, but I know people. And I know what people know, the things that I don't know. So when I need something fixed, I know a person to go fix that. I never thought of translating that over to my path to the ship, right? And then I started meeting some of you amazing people and went, oh, got it. This is an important part of this, right? Is having those conversations to not only know people, to know who knows things, but also to help me grow as a person, right?
Right.
Go ahead, John.
So yeah, I mean that's the thing. We wanted to do this particular episode on networking and cultivating relationships, and it's one of the things that is really important to understand about this sort of thing is, becoming a knight is kind of a team sport. While it is an individual accomplishment, you need a lot of help along the way, and that help is going to come. I mean, you may be a squire to a knight or to a master at arms, and that person is definitely going to help you along your way. But the relationships that you build outside your kingdom, when you go to Pennsic, Gulf Wars, Australia, Ontario West, when you go to these big international events, you're going to start running into your contemporaries to begin with. You have other people who are on that path who are squires at the same time you are, that you get to consult with, that you get to compete with at a level where you're just not getting destroyed by dukes all the time, and you get to work with those people, find out what works for them, and by doing that, you get to kind of track along your path these other people that are going through the same things that you're going through. Because sometimes, as we've been a knight for a while, we kind of we kind of forget what it was like to not know all these things. And so having your contemporaries that you get to work with, and you get to cheer those people on, you get to say, let me help you like the best I can. You make those connections at some of those big events, and those end up being lifelong connections. And if you're lucky, you both get knighted. And then maybe if you're lucky, maybe you win crown or coronet at some point. Maybe you get to sit a throne at the same time as these people that you came up with, and that the joy of that is just immense. But it's, and those contemporaries that you have are going to introduce you to the people they are dependents of. They're going to introduce you to their knight, and you're going to get access to those resources as well. And like, again, it's a team sport, and like, we all got to help each other out, and making those connections and making those networks and cultivating those relationships helps you on your path to knighthood. But ultimately, the real value of it is that you get lifelong friendships unlike anything else you're going to get in the world. Helga?
So I'm going to be a little bit more technical than His Grace on this one. Is networking for me is cultivating information pathways. Where in the process you create lifelong relationships. I'm going to speak on a little bit more of the technical terms, especially on the peerage path. You are helping create paths for yourself and your future students to gain access to knowledge that you do not have, or for you to gain access to knowledge that you do not have. And this is something that creates those friendships, because by sharing knowledge, we create a bigger pool of information that everybody has access to. So the higher your networking, or the higher those relationship connections are, and the more of them there are, even if they are tertiary connections, like, somebody that does this thing that you can send somebody else to. What you are doing is you are helping the SCA pool of knowledge become more interconnected. And so you are a point in it that then can access all the other ones. And when somebody accesses you, you then access all those other points for them. And so this is one of those things that we call paying it forward, because when you start into that pool of knowledge, you start at the center, or you start at the edge of that pool of knowledge, and you dip your toe in. And you're only interacting with those people at that edge. So you tend to interact with other people that don't have as many networking connections. And as you make connections, you then walk deeper and deeper into that pool until you are more centralized in the pool and can interact with all the connections all around you. And so that's one of the things that I'm going to bring to the table tonight to discuss on helping build those connections and how you build those connections. And the awesome side effect of that is you get lifelong relationships with people that they may go all the way and be king someday, or they may go all the way and be just this super peer somewhere else, all the way down to somebody that has played in the SCA for 25 years and is just there to have fun. I can tell you that all of those connections have value. They all play into your peerage path, and they all play into how you interact within the SCA.
Yeah. All those connections matter. From the top to the bottom, all those connections matter. And people like Helga and I have been around everywhere and have like really been able to fight at the top levels of our sport. It becomes increasingly important for us to remember kind of where we came from, and to be able to encourage those people that consider themselves to be the bottom of the rung, and to be able to like bring them into that circle. And it's like, even if you don't want to be like super Duke fighter guy, it's like, come out and hang out with my friends, and because there's value to gain there, and just information, and being able to work the full length of that ladder, if you will, is important for us as peers and as knights, to the more the better, right? The more we can include people at every level, the better off the society is as a whole.
I try to tell people, let me be your weaponized extrovert.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me go help make those connections for you, because somebody did that for me. And so let me introduce you when you're nervous. Let me take you to circles that you may not feel comfortable in, that I do, and I will be your weaponized extrovert. So come hang with me, and I can introduce you to all these people. And you may not interact with those people for the rest of the event, but now you've had that introduction. We have broken the ice. So let me be that weapon. Like, let me do the thing for you. Like, I'm an extrovert. Let me apply it.
So we had a question come up in the chat here from Her Highness of the Mists. How do we make sure the relationships are reciprocal? So we don't want to use and abuse our friends. How do we make sure that that we're giving and receiving when we network?
Go ahead, Helga.
So by honoring the connections that you make. So when you have a student-teacher networking thing, what you are doing is I am giving a teacher my time to learn. So I'm giving them a way to apply their knowledge to me. And I can guarantee you, and I'm going to harp on this so many times tonight, the SCA has a super toxic relationship with humility. Right. And so what we do is we actually ask our students to reach out and be the vulnerable ones when it comes to student-teacher relationships, because our teachers have actually been taught to shut up and that they don't know anything. And so by reaching out to teachers and saying, hey, I would really like your knowledge, what I'm actually doing is I am giving them a way to be a teacher. I'm giving them a way to express their knowledge to me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be really grateful for it. I'm going to give their time. I'm going to give my time. I'm going to make sure they feel heard. I'm going to make sure that if they ask for feedback, I actually give honest and open feedback. But what I'm doing is I'm giving them a platform. The reverse of that is, as a teacher, I make sure the student feels heard, feels listened to, and can understand the information. So part of the thing is we will run into, there will always be student-teacher relationships or relationships like that. I'm being very specific right now, by the way. There's always relationships that you're going to run into where you are not speaking the same language. So how we continue to make those relationships reciprocal is by reaching into the pool, by finding somebody else that has a similar language, and by either passing the teacher or passing the student off and saying, hey, we don't seem to be meshing well. However, I've got somebody else that may be able to work with you. I've got somebody else that may have a knowledge or a language that works with how your brain works. So let's go do this. No hard feelings, no nothing else like that. Our languages just aren't meshing right now. So let's figure out how to do this. This, by the way, is 100% on the teacher. And I'm going to be clear on this one. This is where the teachers need to get over the toxic humility idea that we have bred into the SCA right now, and own their shit, as well as be vulnerable with the student. It is very hard for a student to tell us, hey, how you're kind of saying this makes zero fucking sense. Because they're speaking to a peer most of the time. And that's very, very vulnerable. Don't ever ask your students to be vulnerable like that unless you have a pre-built relationship with them. Again, this goes reciprocal and respect. Is if you are in a position of power, make sure you're the one surrendering your power before your student has to. But in just general ideas of relationship connections, most people will feel that a relationship is reciprocal. They feel heard, they feel understood. Those two things. So if it's a friendship, they want to feel heard, they want emotional safety, they want to make sure that you understand what they're trying to say. In a student-teacher relationship, information is heard and information is understood. And I can guarantee that's going to feed all of those connections. So it's a very simple thing in my mind. It's also super complex because language is imprecise.
Yeah. Along those lines, part of networking, I mean, I have been cultivating relationships for 30 plus years. Because those were like valuable connections to have to people, not because of what they ever could have done for me. I mean, I've got a lot of dukes and duchesses that are my friends, but many of them were squires when I was a squire, right? I've just been cultivating those relationships for a long time. And part of what Helga is talking about is when I have a student or if I have somebody that I'm working with, I've always said that I don't have all the answers. I can't possibly have all the answers. And even if I do have the answer, I don't necessarily have the answer for you or the way in which you need to hear it, but I know somebody who does. and whatever you need to get out of our sport, whatever concept you need to understand, if I can't give you the information that you need, I know somebody who can do that. And so we can reach out to those people and say, hey, can you talk to this person that I'm working with, because I'm just not getting across. But as far as how to make sure that we make that reciprocal, very much in the same thing that Helga was talking about. I am much more concerned with what I can provide for a student than I am for what they can provide for me. I have plenty. I have an embarrassment of riches, certainly when it comes to friends in the SCA. I have access to unlimited knowledge in our sport. I have no needs necessarily, so I'm definitely going to make sure that I'm trying to provide for others more than I expect them to provide for me. So as far as reciprocating, I figure if I am just, if you will, like overly generous in my expectations, if I don't expect anything in return, because really, for me as a trainer, like what I get in return and what my payoff is watching other people have success with the information that I've given them. And so that's how somebody reciprocates to me, I guess, is that you take this information and you become successful with it. And watching you have that success for yourself, plenty worth it.
Yes, that's huge. That is teacher crack, just so you know.
Yeah, you can mainline that shit. Yeah, watching other people take the information that you give and watching them have this kind of success that I've been able to have, that's my payoff. That's what you pay me with, is making your own progress. So, yeah, so there's that.
So Helga explained it earlier as a web, or as that network web, right? So when I think of the idea of reciprocal, that looks very one-on-one, right? You're always in sort of both talking about on a one-on-one basis. I think there's a little bit you can sort of expand out from that, when the idea of all relationships may not be exactly one-to-one reciprocal, but that reciprocation may come back from another thing. It may come back 3 or 4-fold away from you. Mm-hmm. So when you give out, then that person can give out something else, and then that person can then give out something else, and then that person may give out something to you. And again, we're talking give out as a vague thing of who knows what the thing is at this point. So it may not always be an exact one-to-one. You may not be able to find that obvious thing, but because we are building that web becomes stronger. We as a society become stronger. That, to me, I think is the reciprocal thing. Is my giving out makes the society stronger because someone else was able to improve. Therefore, they can then do more for the society. It's largely what I do with why I do these shows, why I do KK Productions. It's, I do extra work so that other people can do better shows, because then they can do better shows. Because I literally, I was talking to Kunheld and Ula the other day about Saga Saturdays. They were losing hours on a Sunday just downloading and uploading a YouTube show that I could, with one click, fix for them by hosting them on the platform. Right? That one little effort from me now has saved them multiple hours on a Sunday that they can now do something else with. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the idea. So I get nothing directly out of that, 0. But they're gonna now be able to improve the society more because they've got more time to do.
I mean, that's how we started this series.
Right.
The Princess of the Mists says, "Hey, why don't you drop in on the Krapotos?" I drop in on the Krapotos and I start talking about these content creators that are out there, and I give them a toast. And Kal's like, "Yes, please." Was like, hey, can I talk to you about an interview? And as we started talking about that, it's like, oh no, there's something to be said here. There's a lot that we've got to say here, and yeah, so those are how those connections go, and it makes the society better as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Sarah, it's all your fault. We blame you completely.
Yes, for all of it. Totally Sarah's fault.
Yeah. All right. So we had a question. So we were talking earlier about we mentioned the student-teacher relationship and the idea of, if you're not talking that one language with them, you find another teacher for them, or you send them to somebody else to learn a thing. I think that's amazing and a great part of networking. But how do we help students who reach out, but their teachers then rip them apart because they feel their way is the one true way? I think that one true way, in being there in quotes, is really the important part of the statement. Is there a one true way, and how do we deal with that one true way?
So when I do my fighting clinic and everywhere I teach, I begin my lecture by saying, I do not believe in the one true way. There is no one perfect way to do any of this. Regrettably, there are a lot of bad ways to do this, but there is no one right way. As I said earlier, I don't have all the answers. I can't possibly have all the answers. And even if I have a lot of answers, maybe I don't have the answer for you. When we assume that our way is the only possible way to do this, like that's a road to damnation. And the idea that my student is not allowed to learn from somebody else because it's not my way is kind of anathema to me. We were at Sport of Kings a number of years ago when Helga was a squire to Sir Mari, and Mari is somebody that I've been working with since before she was a knight. And I'd mentioned that I appreciate that she allows me to work with Helga pretty much with free reign. And Mari's kind of response to that was, it's nice working with people who are of a way. Like everything that I worked with Helga on was different than what she gets from Mari and different from what she gets at Vec and some of her other trainers, but it fits well enough. And again, you have to get this information from as many sources as necessary for your brain to hear it in the way that your brain can actually comprehend what's going on. And so by saying that this is the one true way, you are totally cutting them off from an entire, if your knight or whoever you're a dependent to says that this is the one and only way to do it, there have been 2,500 members of the chivalry that have been made in our history. You're losing out on 2,000 other people that could possibly give you information that might work better for you. So that is just never that doesn't make sense to me.
Agreed. Helga, you have thoughts?
I'm calling soapbox on Sean.
Yeah.
Okay, so to directly address the question, how do we help students who reach out and have their teachers rip them apart for the one true way? Right. So the first thing we need to double check is if that student-teacher relationship is having a language barrier problem. Is there a frustration in both communication? Is the student either repeating themselves because they do not feel heard, and so thus the problem can't be addressed? Is the teacher doing the same behavior?
Right.
And then accelerating it through, and the one true way is where an authoritative fear is being placed on a bad communication. Typically, I have actually found very few one true ways within the SCA. I have found a lot of bad communication. So this sounds like in my, where I would take it is, again, the cup's always half full for me. And I've been torn down before in the SCA, and I'm like, really don't feel like we're talking two different languages going on here. So I don't feel heard. You don't feel heard. We need to back this bus up. So first identify if there's a lack of communication, if two different languages are being used and it's hit to frustration. The next one is a relationship toxic and needs to be severed.
Right.
And there's really not a lot of middle ground there, actually. If there's a communication error, that can be fixed. If it is toxic, that person shouldn't actually be a student to that teacher. Right. That teacher is actually not a teacher. That teacher is a dictator. And I'm sorry, walk away from that. And that's actually how. What was that?
I said you could just leave the tater off of that, frankly. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's a dick, actually. Is
You're
what they
just
are.
a dick.
She's just a dick.
And I'm being pretty brutally honest here, is so when we hit a situation like that, how we can help best address students is by finding those people that are frustrated, by finding those people that feel like they're in a rut, by those that don't feel heard in their training, and being open and honest assessments for them, as well as teachers. There are going to be some students within the SCA, and I'm going to use an extreme here on both ends. So bear with me on this. There are going to be some students that need to do it a certain way. There are going to be some students that feel like in the first 6 months, they need to change every weapon all the time because they are seeking success. You want to know what? As a teacher, you have to look at them and be like, your cup's a little full right now. So what I'm going to do is be supportive.
Right.
When your cup is less full, then we can go back to training. Because if you try to empty that cup for them, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up with a frustrated teacher and you're going to end up with a student that walks away. Instead of letting them kind of get their yayas out a little bit and just being like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, that practice sucked. Like, can we go back to the basics now? Nope, not ready for that. Okay, have fun with that. And then on the other side of it, again, we've already talked about the dick teacher. Walk away from the dick teacher. This is a volunteer sport and organization. None of us are being paid to be here. Like, if I could make dollars doing this, I probably would have figured it out by now, actually. But you want to know what? All of us are here for free. If you feel like your teacher is either trying to jam a chunk of information down your throat, check language barriers, maybe walk away and cool off. All parties involved. Right. And this also goes with the networking thing. So because this is a show about networking, we're going to take that clusterfuck and we're going to bring it back to networking. If you feel that your teacher is doing this to you, reach out to somebody else you trust. Have the conversation with them. Use an outside resource to see if you can assess if your relationship is a language barrier or a toxic barrier, and go from there. And then if it's a toxic barrier, how you address that. Do you need to recreate more connections? Do you need to have a different teacher? Do you need to have a break or a time off? Like, what needs to happen to get yourself back to a healthy space? But reach outside of the small bubble, go to the next layer, ask for outside help, ask for outside assessment so you can make a plan going forward. And again, they might be like, dude, that dude is a known dick. Let's get you to a different teacher over here and you're going to find much better success. So to go back to networking is reach outside of self, reach outside of that relationship, assess the relationship, and move on after that assessment while expanding who you're interacting with so you are not in this little microcosm of fuckery.
Right. So I think that makes an interesting point, though. We're looking at people who have that one true way mentality. I think it's actually even, hold on. Hang tight for a second. Hang tight.
She's not wrong.
But it is still a way. And I think it's important for those learning to listen to that guy, that girl, that night, that person, and let them spew their hot and mold crazy, right? And go, okay, cool. This is how you're successful. What can I take out of that, right? It's not going to be my one true way. It's their one true way, and that's perfectly valid for them and their people and whatever. It doesn't mean there's not something useful in it. I think that's the important thing to remember is don't immediately dismiss it because there's one true way. Because I may be able to pick up something out of their one true way set and go, oh, that's a neat thing, and take it back and add it to my toolbox. Yes, ma'am.
The one thing you have to watch out for there is new students do not typically know their own emotional boundaries yet.
Agreed.
And so the one true way is much easier to fish through when you have a developed tool set, both emotionally and physically, and you can then break down that one true way while also maintaining your barriers with that individual where you're like, cool, that's your one true way. I'm after this piece of it.
Right.
And you know that. I will caution kind of heavily against using that method when you are a newer person, because you can get stuck in a very toxic situation very quickly that will like literally consume your fun, because you will try to please the person giving you information because you're after a specific thing, and it's just going to tangle everything up. And so I would say that more developed situations and more developed relationships, you can place those barriers on them and just be like, I'm literally after this one thing. Like, I need to know how you throw a flat snap because I watch you throw a flat snap. No. Don't even talk about footwork. I give no fucks about your footwork. Okay. Throw a flat snap. That's what I want. Right. And so that's something that I wanted to just put that like star, also see, please don't get caught up in this because you're just after one thing.
Right. Well, yeah. And I think I'm not saying seek it out necessarily. I'm just saying if you're sort of, if you're taking a class in a collegium and Duke Sir such and such is preaching the one true way, cool. Listen, hear it out because you're there. You're there for the ride at that point, right? And just figure out what out of it is useful. I'm not saying seek out I need to learn how this one thing because you're right. That can get toxic quick and you can sort of fall into a rabbit hole. You're absolutely correct.
Okay. I think the difference is you're talking about an instant situation versus I'm talking about a long-term communication issue. Agreed.
Yeah. I'm more of a, if you're in the situation, if you're there, find the good in it. And that's sort of how I look at it. I always try to find something good out of something. Even if it's the most hot, molten crazy, I'm going to find something good out of it. Even if the thing I find is that person's hot, molten crazy. And that's the thing I learned, right? There's nothing wrong with that's the thing you've learned, but at least you learned something from that person. I think everybody can teach us something, which is, again, part of networking, right? There is both positive and negative relationships. There are both good and bad webs. There's things you need to know of, here's the good network. Here's the bad network I don't want to be part of. Like, those are two things you need to know. They're both part of that sort of overview of networking.
Yeah.
All right, so we had a couple questions come in here. Also,
what?
I know, right?
Hi, Maisie.
Maisie says hi. I was going to say Her
Hi,
Majesty.
Maisie.
She's no longer Her Majesty anymore. She says her Majesty again.
I loves the Maisie.
I enjoyed getting to fight with her at Gadaloff last year. It was really neat when we got to fight because they did like Knights versus the World, and of course, her not being a knight was like, all right, cool. So it was like and I was like, I'm on her team. I'm good with this. So I was perfectly happy being on her side of that field because that spear is scary.
Yep.
Anyways, oh look, 33 minutes. We broke our record.
Before we got to stick talk.
All right.
Do you guys have you need to keep a running timer on that?
We made it like 45 minutes the first episode.
Yeah, we've been 42, 45 minutes with 33 so far.
Before we get into stick talk.
Yeah. And it was me this time, surprisingly.
Right. Sean is networking and influencing you in vast, vast ways.
That's agreed. Okay. So there's actually two questions here, and we're going to hit both of them, but I think this is a good first one. What strategies can we use to build the networking relationships when one of the individuals has some distrust due to prior bad relationships? So this goes back to our previous questions from Her Excellency Vermouth. So how do we deal with dealing with distrust from bad relationships?
Do you want to hit that one first? You want me to?
I mean, do you want to Rochambeau over it, or we can throw a flat snap over it? You know?
So I'll go take it. So first off, it's important to recognize that there is a certain amount of PTSD that comes from that relationship. If you've had a bad relationship, in either in our society or in the modern world, that trust issues, it's going to take a certain amount of it's going to take a tremendous amount of faith to restore that trust in anybody else. And this kind of I think one of the ways that we see this a lot is when somebody had been a squire to a knight and then severed that relationship for some reason and like just out in the wild, right? And there has always been this sort of stigma. Well, there's a lot of unbelted fighters who think that there's a stigma associated with, I was a squire to somebody, now I'm not a squire, so maybe I'm the problem, right? And if you had a bad relationship with a previous knight, it is going to take, again, a huge amount of trust for you to rebuild that trust in another knight. And it may be one of those things where you were a squire, it went bad for you, you may choose to never be squire to somebody again. it's important to state that first off that I do not believe in that stigma. People sever these relationships for infinite number of reasons, which quite frankly are none of my fucking business. Right? Whatever relationship you had with your previous knight, that doesn't impact my concern and my buy-in and my concern for your well-being and your path to knighthood. It's like you and I are going to have our own relationship that is not influenced by your former relationship with whatever, whether you were a squire to somebody or whether you were an apprentice or, protege to somebody before. I've had one of my former squires that says, I was in a former kingdom and I made a lot of enemies over there. I'm like, well, you're here doing the work for me now, so let's build our own relationship, and so I think it's important for you to, and again, it takes, once you've been burned like that, it is going to be hard for you to have trust that somebody actually cares about you deeply enough to like honor that relationship. Helga's looking at us kind of weird, and I'm not sure if her video is cutting out.
No, my video just crapped.
Yeah, she had a Matrix moment there, and
oh boy, you should see the look you're giving us right now, though.
No, I can see it because I'm watching the live feed, and it's frozen on my machine too.
Yeah, you're frozen here. You want to pop out and back in?
Yeah, let me pop out and pop back in real quick, and I will be right back and see. It's actually a camera issue because it's screwed up on my OBS too.
Oh, stop using OBS. That's your problem. Okay, well, I'll yell at you about that later.
Hey.
Why don't you drop out and come back in?
I'll be right back.
Pop.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's once you've been burned in a relationship like that, it is going to take you as the student, and again, it's a matter of PTSD. It really is.
Right.
And there's no magic switch that we can flip to tell you that you just need to get over it. That's one of those things with all emotional disorders. You can't just tell somebody to get over that. You can't tell somebody it's okay, you can trust me, just like you trusted somebody else before. So that's going to be hard. And it's, I mean, all we can do as teachers is to just try to honor that relationship as best we can as individuals. And again, having had students that had bad relationships in other kingdoms, it's like, you're doing the work for me, you're doing the job for me, and let's, you and I are friends, and it starts with a friendship, and then as far as the networking portion of that goes, once I've established a certain amount of trust with this dependent, and then I get to share my network with those people, and then they get to understand that bad relationship that you had could just be a one-off.
Right.
Maybe it was a toxic as Helga was saying a minute ago, that toxic relationship. Maybe it was toxic for both of you. Maybe it was just a bad fit for both of you. And when you find a better fit, and I can give you access to different resources, and perhaps you tell me about the experience that you had, so I know the types of people maybe that are not the best to introduce you to and to help you out with your path.
So the comment that I popped up a minute ago, I think that to me is the answer: communication, right? And that's and it's funny. All right, Helga is restarting her computer. She'll be back with us in that. So cool. And it's funny. So there's another show I do called Poly and Perspectives, where we talk about poly things and relationships. Right? Relationships are all about communication. What is the one thing you do to fix a relationship? You communicate. Yeah. Right. So we're talking about this from a good, a bad, a new, and old. That communication makes such a big difference in knowing what's going on and why, because just like Helga was talking about with the language thing, you don't know you're speaking a different language till you actually have those conversations, and you don't know what the person needs or what they came from or whatever. So yeah, just talk about that. Just find those communication methods so that you can then get past it. And as someone who has had bad relationships with peers and put me off being belted for quite some time, and I got to the angry pre-belt phase, I guess. of my fuck it, I don't need a peer. I'm gonna be a peer without them. I'm just gonna be knightly and fuck all the knights, right? I've been there.
Yeah.
I'm slowly coming out of that because I have much more positive knightly experiences recently. But when you get burned enough, it's very difficult to trust, right? From especially someone being on the bottom side of this who has not had that positive relationship. It is very difficult to trust and somebody else because you see that chain, that belt, and you instantly go, nope, they're another asshole, right? And it's that PTSD, it's that abused, the domestic abuse sort of mentality, right? Is Helga there? She's partially there. All right, well, we'll give her a minute. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Let's see. If you're willing to let someone hit you in the head, you should be willing to just be honest about nervous points and trust. Correct. We trust each other to not kill each other. Just have that conversation. Thank you for that. Good
yeah.
work.
And again, that all goes back to this whole networking point that, you are building relationships.
Right.
You're cultivating relationships. And, you meet somebody at Gulf Wars and have a really great interaction with them. And then you come to find out later that maybe this is not a relationship that you want to really pursue and cultivate more. It may just end up being somebody that you knew once, maybe somebody that just helped you out with a thing one time at Gulf Wars, and that's okay too. Just making those connections, cultivating those relationships, and you're going to have to navigate those relationships just like you do any other more intimate relationships, right? And when you think about the fact that the SEA is one of those very unique places where I can go anywhere in the world, literally anywhere in the world, and have a place to sleep, from the connections that I've made through the SEA. There's how many people can in the modern world can do that? And those are all part of those relationships, and we tend to form those bonds, I think, more quickly, because when you think about that, it's I'm going to be out on the East Coast. I met this guy at Gulf Wars this one time, and he's going to give me crash base on his couch. It's this isn't somebody I've known since high school,
right?
It's a guy, I fought at an event one time. And he's willing to put me on his couch. It's how well do I know this person? And still, there's that network, there's those relationships, and just being able to, get crash base at somebody's house, sit on the couch, have some conversation with them. It's just priceless. It's just really priceless.
Good. All right, so Viking made a point. I want to circle back to you where we're still waiting on Helga. So it said, speaking of bad networks, so I talked about the good and the bad networks. Is it worth it to suffer those to gain access to other good connections? Or is it better to take the longer path? I think the short answer is no. If there's a better way around, take the better way. It's I want to say, we have a Helga. Yours?
Hi-yo.
There we go. All right. So yeah, I think the answer is no. Don't suffer bad connections if you can help it. Eliminate those as you can. Learn what you have to. Learn what you can from that that interaction, even if it is that they're hot and crazy.
There are so many other great connections that you could make. There's just really no reason for you to suffer through shitty relationships. However tenable they may be in the society, there's no reason for you to suffer through something like that when there is a much better fit for you somewhere else.
It's the idea of I guess so. I'll ask this from a fighting perspective: is would you fight somebody who fights dangerously just to get a fight in? Yeah. Is that good practice? Right? Are you learning something? But they're the only person showing up fighter practice. Well, that's great, but are you really improving your fighting? Are you really practicing if they're a bad fighter or a very dangerous fighter? Right. That's maybe one sort of physical example, but I think it's a good one. That is because physical toxicity is a lot easier to see than mental or emotional toxicity, or at least a lot easier to sort of diagnose. So, all right. Welcome back, Your Grace.
Welcome back, Your Grace. Happy to have you again.
just unplugged my entire hub and stripped my laptop down to nothing. Apparently, my hub has gone bad.
Excellent. I'm glad we're breaking shit for you tonight. So
super pleased that just happened.
At least it happened tonight, and so you got time to prep for next Friday. You're good now, right?
Yeah.
Break shit on my shows. Don't break shit on your shows. It's much easier.
Sorry about that, guys.
Okay. So there was a question that came up about Remote's asking some great ones tonight, and I think I wanted to wait for Helga to get back to this since her and I have and the three of us have all been such involved with the ESCA. So to preface this, obviously networking has changed, right? In the SCA, we have the digital means. I have never met the two of you in person. We have never physically touched each other in the real world.
And here we are.
Huh?
And here we are.
Yeah, here we are having this conversation. And I think, Sean, you and I are on like 7 or 8 hours of conversations on camera, and I think Helga and I are probably about the same from our shows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we see as the ideal future of SCA networking when we get back to in-person events, right? So we get back to that new normal.
I mean, ideally the same as what we had before, honestly. I think a lot of the online presence that we have, some of it's going to fade. I know we're planning on doing the coach's corner for as long as there's conversations to be had. I'm not sure what the future holds for Helga's show on the Between Two Peers, but there's going to be a decreasing need for some of the online content. And certainly, I mean, in our kingdom, we are doing virtual courts right now. I know a lot of kingdoms are not doing virtual courts. When we get back to being able to have events in person, and this is a statement I've made many times, and I stand by hand over fist. Online courts are not better than in-person events, not by any stretch of the imagination. They are simply better than not doing anything at all. And when we get back to doing in-person events, I would not advocate to continue doing like virtual court. We had been doing live streaming of existing courts as it was before the COVID years. I would definitely like to see that happen because that's giving access to people that may or may not be able to get to the event. But as far as the networking portion goes, there is simply no substitute for getting pickup fights under the big tree in front of the castle at Gulf Wars and meeting total strangers and having that magic aha set of fights that is going to lead to a lifelong relationship. There's just no substitute for that.
So to tackle this one, networking is going to actually change. So we have, and I'm not going to say it's not online content, it's not anything else like that. COVID has fundamentally broken some barriers down about us reaching out to each other through the ether of the internet to ask a question. It has made people fundamentally more accessible, and I do not see that going away. I do not see Duke Sean stopping doing video analysis, every couple months with people online and continuing to create that accessibility. What I think COVID has done is it has gotten us over some of our tech fear, and it has gotten over some of our networking fear. Before, we had our little bubbles within Kingdom, and we had to be introduced outside of that. And COVID has forced many of us to learn to reach outside our own bubbles to the next level of networking. And it has broken a lot of barriers, and it has also taught people how to do it. Before, there was how do I introduce myself to somebody online? And this has actually given us a golden opportunity for a year to be like, I'm panicking. I hit enter. Okay, cool. Okay, you didn't beat me. Great. Now I'm going to ask questions. And fundamentally, it has gotten us over a lot of that excess panic when it comes to reaching out for questions, when it comes to reaching for answers, when it comes to reaching for the material, which is actually building the network. All the shows aside and all the online content of like online courts or the other things that are going on, of course that's going to go away. The behaviors themselves that have broken our inability to use technology are now gone.
Right.
We know how to use Zoom. We know how to functionally teach a class online. We know how to reach out to each other. We have all created a much bigger network to now use that is going to continue to help in person. If you have fear of meeting somebody face to face, guess what? Now you can pop on Messenger and be like, hey, I really think you're cool, but I need this emotional barrier right now of like a keyboard to talk to you. And then I'd really like to meet you in person sometime. Or like, hey, I want to meet up at this event. And this is another thing that I was the captain and still am the captain of picking fights before an event goes off. This is networking. I messaged Sean, hey, you're going to be at Golf Wars? Cool. I want dances and training on Tuesday. Hey, Duke Morgan, you're going to be at Golf Wars? Sweet. Wednesday, need training. Like at this time, like we're going to be after the battles. We'll go grab a snack and then we'll come back and train. And so I'm actually going to speak to this aspect. COVID has given us this ability to many more people. You know, weaponized extrovert. I naturally came with the ability to just be like, shit, enter. Okay. Now panic that I just contacted a person I have never known to ask for pickup fights. I think we're going to continue to use that. And I really hope that we continue to use that. And I hope people walk away from COVID with a better understanding of how to reach out to each other online for in-person interactions and training.
Right. Yeah, I think the one thing we're really going to see is that, and I'll use the word peer fear. Everybody understands the word peer fear, right? But the idea of that peer fear stuff is going to start going away because we have so many of us that are doing these sort of, and we lost Helga again. Okay. We have so many people that are doing these online interactions and getting their faces out and teaching classes that the FaceTime is becoming more and more a thing. So we're actually breaking that barrier. Welcome back again. And we're able to Helga's having a bad night, man. You're able to, and this came from the comments, we're able to know that these people are people, right? So I think, you know, if I would have seen Helga at an event before today, I would have been perfectly fine as a fellow extrovert. Her and I would have probably just ran into each other anyways, literally ran into each other and, you know, fell down in a pile of punching. But not everybody has that option. But things like Between Two Peers has now removed that and went, oh, Helga's actually just a person who has computer problems and has home problems and has things, and oh, cool, she's a person, neat, right? That barrier gets removed. I think we'll see even more of that after COVID. When we start getting back in events and those connections get remade or get made new, this stuff we have now and what will continue will help with that. Not in addition to we have better knowledge spreading, we have the better resources, that sort of thing. All right, Helga, are you back with us? Are you good?
Oh no, I'm back. I hit the wrong tab. Like I don't know what it is. I'm not even drinking for the show, and I've managed to screw up my tech 3 times.
Maybe you should.
I shoot a weekly web show, and I would like to note that this is the show that I'm just like, I got nothing.
It's okay. So, a bit off topic for a second, but yeah. So Logan and I did a whole hour talk on web shows and sort of production stuff we've done. That was the most tech fucked show I had ever run. I was like, this is typical. This is how this shit works. This is the green screen wasn't working, the lights weren't working, the cameras were fucked. It was just bad.
I like how the tech gods were like, you both can choke on it right now.
Right, pretty much. It was so yeah. It showed us that we don't know what we're doing. Actually, we're just amateurs here. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's see. Let me catch up here.
I sent a private message actually.
What?
I sent a private message real quick that you should check out.
Yeah. Okay. I did not. Sure, we'll talk about it in a minute. We did not. Well, okay, we did. Yeah. So the question was, did we tackle the toxic connection thing? I think we talked about that a little bit. The Fiken asked, do you have more things about that you want to add? I know you didn't hear what we said, but basically the answer.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was cursing, running around my room like a chicken with my head cut off. So
right.
I just asked in the private chat real quick. Did you tackle the fact that keeping toxic connections or those toxic relationships within the SCA to get to a better relationship in the SCA actually allows our dangerous people to stay?
Yeah.
So,
right.
And this is actually something that I want to harp on pretty hard. You should not survive a connection to get to a better one. Subdivert it, leave it alone, ignore that asshole. and leave those people alone. Because the reason why we continue to have badly reinforced teachers is because somebody stays because they're like, well, if I can survive this one person, maybe I'll be worthy of a better connection.
Right.
Fuck that noise. Walk away from the connection because that person shouldn't be there in the first place. Don't put them on a pedestal because you feel that you can get to something better because you survived something. That just reinforces dangerous and bad behavior that we all bitch about in the SCA. So that was my little soapbox that I totally had set up, and then my camera was like.
And I'll just touch on that to say that when we're talking about this kind of networking, again, it's a team sport. We all want to help you out. We want you as particularly as unbelted fighters to be better, because that makes our society better. And the types of relationships that you want to build and cultivate are non-transactional. If there is no reason for you to suffer through a transactional relationship for any reason at all. If, again, those of us who, quite frankly, are very good at this and providing the resources that we need, the transaction that we get is watching you be good. That's enough for us. If there's anybody that says, it's like, well, if, whatever transaction they want to elicit out of you so that they can give you connections to somebody else is a toxic relationship and should not be tolerated.
All right. So, first of all, Duke Sean is dreamy. That's the thing. Had to bring that up. He has the hair going on tonight.
Says the handsome one.
Right. There you go. Just throw that out there. The two of you, by the way, are just that is an adorable bromance I did not know I needed more of right there.
I can tell you, I need more of that bromance. So I could have told you.
All right.
I mean, you could probably sell it as a fundraiser.
So I've got a live stream coming up. I've got a 12-hour live stream coming up. I think all right. Anyways, cutest puppies and Sean and Sam. Got it. We have ideas here.
Right.
All right. So I got to ask. We were talking earlier about the different languages, right? And we talked about we don't want to suffer those bad connections, and we want to disengage when we can. What are some strategies that we would recommend for disengaging from unfamiliar instructors when you and I are not speaking different or are speaking different languages is not getting through? So how can we sort of, with grace, your graces, remove ourselves from those bad connections without just fuck out the door? Which I know is Helga's first answer, right?
I mean, that's one way.
I would like to know I've got more tact than that. I used to not have more tact than that.
So without that, what's our next step?
So one of the things you can do is, like, if you want to get out of a situation where you're not meshing with the teacher really well, you can say, hey, my brain is full. I'm not retaining what you are saying. This puts, and so this is one of those things where you must do it with caution, but you put the onus on yourself in a polite way. I am not retaining what you are saying. Is a very polite way of saying, nothing's sticking, motherfucker. So this is something that I use a lot of the times. If you are in another peer relationship or you have a safety peer, by the way, I highly recommend having a safety peer. You can say, hey, I think, my head's a little full. I would love it if you would talk to my peer about that. Because right now I'm not grasping what you are saying. And I'm not trying to brush you off. I'm not trying to tell you that, this isn't working. I'm just telling you that I am currently not grasping what you are saying. And this is a slightly harder way of saying, like, look, I'm not grokking what you're saying, or our languages aren't meshing, or you're frustrating me. Like, and that's something that, like, in new relationships, it is very hard to tell somebody that you're getting frustrated by how they're communicating to you. I can guarantee you that Sean and I have drank more than one beer and had hot wings over, motherfucker, I do not understand what you are trying to tell me.
And we're going to sit down until we figure this out.
Let's hash this out. Like, our language right now is not meshing. And we came to a really good conclusion over that, but he and I have a very, very developed relationship where we can both use harsh language with each other, where we're like, breaks right now. But in those developing relationships, by taking onus on yourself, typically a lot of the times what will happen is it'll actually get your teacher to disengage, or who you're working with to disengage for a moment and be like, oh, your brain is full. And if they keep going, At that point in time, they're being an asshole, and you get to start slowly working your way out of that situation. But one of the things is, if you tell them that, you can repeat it to them and be like, you are not listening. At this point in time, you're wasting your time because I am not grasping what you are saying. I would love to come back to this later. And at that point, it's really actually on them. Please exit the situation. You're not being rude at that point in time. They are.
Right.
Yeah, and it really it's self-advocating, because if you're just not getting the information, and that's something that's very hard to do, especially in a power dynamic. Because when we have experienced fighters or knights or dukes or whatever who are trying to work with a student, it's very difficult for somebody on the lower end of that spectrum to self-advocate for themselves. But ultimately, it's something else that we've kind of touched on here and there throughout the night. That the people that have the information that you want and need are dying to give it away to people who are going to do something with it. And the people that are going to so you can get that information from another source somewhere. And so, but it can be very hard to self-advocate for yourself and to disengage that conversation and to just say, I don't get it. And I know, not all trainers are created equal. Some of those people, they explain it the best they can. And if you don't get that, they may take offense to that. And so self-advocating for that, and just being able to, like Helga just said, is it's like I see your lips moving, but all I hear is blah 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 blah. I just don't get it. Maybe sometimes you can say, again, I don't fully comprehend what you're talking about. Is and again, having a safety peer, that's super super handy. Being able to say, I'm just not getting this. Can you talk to my peer about this? And that safety peer doesn't have to be somebody you're in a relationship with or a nice square relationship necessarily. It's somebody from your any of the trainers from your local group, whether they're knights or not. You can say, hey, this is one of my trainers. This is one of the people I'm working with in my local group. Can you maybe explain it to them? And maybe they can explain it to you. So self-advocating is a thing, but it can be very difficult, and it can be very intimidating to raise your hand and say, I don't get it.
You raise?
Yes, Helga.
I just wanted to pop in here. One of the really cool comments that just came up of it can be frustrating trying to wrap your head around something. Well, you honestly know the teacher is trying. Yeah. In this situation, giving the teacher props while also disengaging, and this is, again, if it's a healthy situation, I'm going to tell you, never give props to a unhealthy teaching situation, out. But in a healthy teaching situation where you understand that the teacher is trying and your head is full and the language is not working, is actually tell them. Right. Look, I know that you're trying right now. Can we either try later? Can we try a different language? Right now, I need to stop because my head is full, but I understand that you are working at this and you are giving me your time, and thank you very much. I am actually not blowing you off. And telling them that last word of, I'm actually not blowing you off, but I need a moment, works huge, because it also reinforces to that trainer who is trying to learn how to teach to come back and try again. And so that's where you can build a really healthy connection. That's actually a really, really good, rolling it right back to networking. That's actually a really good way to reinforce a networking connection with a possible teacher down the road. Right. Of just hey, look, we're going to end this on a good note. My head is full. I understand that you are trying real hard and our language just isn't meshing. I'd really like to try again later. Maybe, maybe some other time this is going to work really well. I don't want to blow you off, and I don't want to say that your information is invalid for where I'm at right now. That's going to be huge for them later.
And again, that's a matter of self-advocacy, which can be difficult on the lower end of that power spectrum to tell somebody that has a higher level power dynamic to be able to say, we need to be done here. That's very difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I would like to go write this down in my book. I like that.
Yep.
So that's a really great. Thank you, Your Grace, for that. That was a really great point. So yeah, if you have that point where you're like, I'm not losing it. I need to go write this down. I'm gonna go. Let me take a break and go write this down. I think that's a really, and it's because it's true. One, that's what you should do. Go write it down. Go grab your book. And if you're a fighter out there and don't have a book, get a book. Get 2 books. Get a book for your book.
Yep.
All the writing's important.
And that is an easy break in that conversation.
I like that.
Yep. Yeah. It's like, I need to go write this down, and I need to be somewhere else when I do that.
Yeah.
That can be a really easy way to break that conversation. Thanks, Bronos.
Yeah, there you go.
Man, that guy's good.
It's right? He thinks he's the fight or something. I don't know. All right. So I'm really surprised this hasn't came up yet, but I cannot leave this sitting without the soapboxes that are coming from it. So I'll ask it. So you're telling me I just have to be friends with a bunch of knights to get knighted? That's awesome.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
I am not bringing you beer when we hang out.
So
I figured it'd be better if I just threw the grenade out there and let y'all jump on it, then let the comments do it. Cool.
So this is definitely something that I kind of wanted to disavow in this particular episode. Networking is not about kissing ass. I have heard, I've heard countless unbelted fighters who have said things like, well, I the only reason I haven't been knighted is because I don't hang out with the right people. And that's like that's it's just not true. Networking is not about what, again, with the reciprocal relationship that we get from this sort of networking. It's not about what you can get from a particular individual. Ultimately, the value of networking and cultivating these relationships is the lifelong relationship itself. And when you find that somebody has a skill later down the road that you have access to, that's neat and all. But yeah, the idea that is like, I have to know the right people to get knighted. That's not it at all. We've talked in other episodes about ways that you can approach knights in your kingdom that you don't know, so that you can get to know them better. But we never said you need to get them better so you can get knighted. Right? That's not how it works. And by the way, that sort of thing is just ridiculously transparent. When you are going out in the field and you're trying to meet people so that you know the right people, we see through that every time. It is terribly transparent, and it's disingenuous at best. So go out there and there's just so many wonderful people in the SCA that you can learn from, and that are just amazing people to just be around. So go learn how to fight from them, hang out with them, and just like find new friends. I mean, this whole operation works because of the people. Every time you ask people about what keeps us coming back, it's the people. And it is the relationship in and of itself is the payoff.
Oh, what you got?
So Bucks
is different than networking.
Right.
Ooh.
You must have renown to be known by the knights. Renown is also gifted to you by other people. You cannot grant renown to yourself. Networking does crossover. There's a little Venn diagram between networking and renown. Networking will help with your renown, because when you are known, you will be known. When you have relationships, you will probably likely have a little bit more renown, because people know where you're at, how you communicate, and what you do. Renown directly affects your knight ability. Actually, just to be bluntly honest, if nobody knows who you are, the Knights Council isn't going to know who you are. However, networking falls into something that you can influence and help yourself with. And so when people say, oh, it's who you know, no, it's actually who knows you.
Right.
And this is different. And it's also really, really daunting, because you cannot force those relationships. Also, renown is based off your skill, your presentation, and how your bearing is. Networking is not completely. Networking is how you build and cultivate relationships. Again, Venn diagram, but not the same damn thing. And you have to remember that. Networking is also give-take. Renown is not. Renown is just given to you. Remember that. It's also really dangerous. And so that's one of the things that somebody actually needs. When you run into that, when they're like, oh, it's who you know to get knighted. Nope, different thing. Who knows you? So remember that, and kind of sit on that a little bit, because it can be a very daunting task. But knowing the difference is very key to not trying to network in a negative way.
Yeah. So I have a follow-up question, but I want to address something that Graph said. So he brings up here in the comments that it's that he's specifically harder on people that are friends of his when it comes. I'm filling in when it comes to being knighted, when it comes to it in the circle discussions, specifically because of the belief that it takes knowing a knight to become a knight. I think that's a really interesting point, that it may actually make it harder to be knighted if you're friends with knights, right? Because of that. That's interesting.
I had one of my squires who at one point wanted 1 crown. Some of his friends in his local area said, "Oh well, Sean's king now, so you're definitely going to get knighted now."
Right.
Like, oh, you obviously don't know how this works.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty much a guarantee that I'm not getting knighted. Yeah. Because in order for me to knight one of my squires, it would have to be like a pretty overwhelming demand from our order, because I'm not going to have any kind of stain of nepotism on that at all.
Right. As much as you would want to be the one knighting him, because that would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be fantastic. I mean, my knight knighted me, and it was fantastic, and it's a moment that I treasure. But I'm not gonna have somebody say the only reason you got knighted is because your knight was king.
Right.
Not gonna happen.
All right. So my follow-up question, actually, on the more serious side of this, is: so we talked about it's not who you know, or it's who knows you. Cool. I'm down for that. What about those bad relationships, though? So if others that you know or associate with are negative, how does that affect you? How does that affect you in the path to knighthood? So it's not you. Your personal. You're a great person. You're an amazing person. But your significant other maybe has some negative qualities, or your friends have negative qualities, or your brother has negative qualities. How does that affect you?
Would you like the guys on the street out of me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you hang out with a bunch of assholes, you're likely an asshole. This is actually the thing. If you're willing to tolerate assholes, it means you're willing to tolerate bullies. And if you're willing to do that, you're not a fucking knight, actually. And this is going to be one of the hardest opinions that I have that you will ever run into. That person can come across as the nicest, well-meaning individual ever. And if they tolerate somebody that is going to hurt another person, they're not a knight. They're just a good stick jock. They lack courage and they lack faith in what they should be doing. I'm going to tell you no.
I'm going to need you to grab that mic and just toss it over.
Yeah, that's all I got. I'm just going to have to ditto that. I'm just going to have to agree with Helga on that.
Yeah. I think the phrase, if you sit down at a table with 10 Nazis, there's now 11 Nazis at the table.
Yeah.
Sums that up. That's sort of the idea.
Yeah, something like that.
Wait, isn't there an argument rule? Didn't you just break an argument rule by mentioning Nazis?
Of course I did, but that's
Godwin's law.
But I win. I just won the argument, clearly. Obviously.
I believe that was my mic drop, thank you.
Well, I just helped. I'm just helping. Ride those coattails, Helga. Ride those coattails. It's what I do. All right. So let me see. We've got there you go. There's your amen right there. All right. So I think we've hit everything. So let's do some business, then we'll do some final thoughts.
Yeah.
So of course, we have lots more What Makes a Knight content coming up. Well, actually, I said lots more. We're on episode 7.
Apparently Helga has a question.
Oh, I have a question that actually, so I'm going to ride your coattails, and I'm going to propose a question to you two, because this didn't actually come up, and I'm kind of shocked. It is a talk about networking, and we never actually had what are a couple tools that you would give a newcomer or somebody coming into an area to start their networking? What are simple things that you can teach somebody so they can increase their network, and how they can build this and grow this?
Well, since she asked us, you want to go, Kal?
Apparently, okay.
As the unbelt in the room.
I don't like getting asked questions on my own show.
Whose show is this anyway?
I will turn the show around. So I think for me, the best way, and okay, as the youngest and the millennial in the room, and I mean, Helga and I aren't that far apart, but she's still got me by a couple of years. social media, guys. We have so many things out there. The internet's a thing. So if you're new to an area, new to the SCA, reach out. Find your Facebook groups, find your Discord channel, start meeting people, start getting your name out there and just talking. I think having those conversations, even just, hey, I'm new and want to chat, right? And you'll just start seeing people want to talk to you. People want to have those conversations. People want to start building those relationships. When we are not in COVID time, right? Because again, it's a whole different conversation now. Go to those practices. Go to classes. Go to things that don't interest you necessarily, right? I encourage you stick jocks out there. Go to a damn A&S class. Go learn how to sew a tunic. You may never actually sew a tunic, but go learn how to sew a tunic because you'll meet people there. And guess what? Knights sew.
Seems like we did an episode on that.
Right. So yeah, go to those classes. Go to those things that you aren't necessarily interested in, just because you're meeting the people and supporting those people in their things, right? I think that's the best way. Is find your local social media things, whatever they are, and when we're back in person, go to things that you wouldn't. They're not your things.
Yeah, social media is what we have here in the Rona years, and I can tell you that I have an embarrassing amount of Facebook friend requests that pop up on my feed that I just ignore because I don't know who the hell this person is. And on the other hand, I have a number of people who I've never met in person who send me a friend request. And if you're going to do that, it helps if you send me a private message as well to say, hey, I saw you on this show or that show, or I have a question for you. Because typically, I don't like to do social media with people that I haven't had an actual conversation with. And there's a lot of people, if I just don't recognize them, maybe it's a friend of a friend, maybe it's somebody that's just harvesting, friendships. I'm not interested in that. But if we've had a conversation, that I'm going to engage that because, I'm out there in the wild and, ubiquitous and legion. And I want to help. So if you have a question about something, send me a private message and ask me a question, and I'll do my best to get back to you. So as far as the social media goes, that's one way you can do that. And I can tell you that most of the coaches that we work with, and really a lot of really great fighters out there feel very much the same way, that they want to help you with what you're doing. When we get back to having events again, the best way for you to start building these networks, show up on the pickup field, because we have these large wars that really are just an excuse to get 12,000 people in one location at the same time. That's the whole point of Penzik, the Gulf Wars, Great Western War, Australia, just to get thousands of people in one place at one time from all over the known world. And again, the best fighters that you're going to find out on the field want to help you. Get out on the pickup field, pick a fight. Just walk up with somebody. I mean, it honestly helps if they got a white belt, but some of those unbelted fighters are going to become your contemporaries, right? And those contemporaries are important. You want to fight the Dukes, you want to fight the Knights and all that sort of stuff, but fighting your contemporaries is important. That is how you build those relationships. And sometimes finding another squire to fight, that's your gateway. That's your entry level, is fighting a person. And, and who cares whether they're better than you or not? They're an unbelted fighter, so that kind of gives you an idea about how good they may or may not be. It's an entry level fight that you can have to walk up and say, hey, can we get some fights? You hang out with that person, you start chatting with them. Maybe they introduce you to their night. Maybe you introduce them to your night. That's how those relationships start. And eventually you get to that point where you're like, oh, have you ever fought Helga? I know Helga. Let me get you some fights with Helga because I know her. He's networking. Toe beans? Did we touch toe beans?
Logan makes a good point. Welcome to the SCA. Now pick a fight. It needs to be a T-shirt. There you go. Yeah. We can have all T-shirt line before we're done with
we got
show.
All kind of T-shirts.
All T-shirts in the show, man. All right, Helga, did that answer your question? Was that? Do you have more thoughts?
I mean, I always have more thoughts. Come on.
That's true. It's like
you can talk, so I still talk.
That's true. So, Phil, feel free to fill in the gaps for us then.
Approach fights with what you need.
Okay.
Or what you're looking for. So being open and honest will help you network. Because believe me, the knights aren't really, the knights and actually most people aren't going to remember somebody that just is like, want to fight. If you walk up to a knight, a duke, or some other undealt and say, hey, I'd like a fight, but I'm working on X, Y, or Z. I'd love your feedback. I would love your feedback, or I would love your take. That's the beginning of the relationship, actually, because now you're asking them to actually engage with you as soon as your helmet's off.
Right.
You are now asking for their time. Ask for the time. Be respectful of the time. Repeat. Duke Sean has dealt with me for years, being way too enthusiastic of a young fighter walking up and being like, "So, where's your pickup line? Cool. See you at the end of it." And then picking his brain afterwards. That's how our relationship kind of developed. I've got many relationships like that with both peers and non-peers. I'm like, let's sit down and talk about this thing. So the next thing is be bold. I realize that many of us inside will be screaming in fright that we are interacting with another human being. And we have all these ideas made up about the other human being. The higher the rank, typically the more heroic stories we have written in our head about them. Go be the hero of your own story and talk to them. Panic inside, be bold externally.
Go be the hero of your own story.
You're a weaponized extrovert.
I like
They'll
that.
be bold for you. And then beyond that is make the connection after the event. Ping them on Facebook. Send them that private message. Hey, thanks for the fight. Hey, thanks for the training time. Holy crap, I had so much fun fighting you. You want to talk about developing relationships with your contemporaries, like unbelts developing relationships? Telling somebody they were a fun fight and actually giving them some feedback and or like saying, look, let's do this again. They're now going to reach back in that connection and try to give you the time back. They'll hunt you down. I have many, many friends that are now knights and some that are still unbelts that we hunt each other down religiously at every war because we started doing that with each other.
Yep.
So use the internet for the best thing ever. Creating connections so you can pick fights later. Because you can pre-pick your fights. You want to know how to get on every Duke's pickup list? You send them a message. Sometimes you call them old.
Years ago, before the Facebook days, I had one of my students, hit me up on one of the bulletin boards and said, "Hey, you're going to be coming to Estrella. Can I get some fights in with you? Can I get on your list?" And it's like 6 weeks before Estrella. I'm like, on my list? You are my list. Like nobody else has bothered to call me up, a month and a half before I get there to ask me for fights. So, like, you get priority all of a sudden. Like, and really, it really was that easy.
Yeah. And typically, if you reach out beforehand, you get like enthusiastic line cuts.
Yeah,
so instead of waiting 3 hours to fight Duke Sean, you show up and you're like, hey, I messaged you on Facebook about our pickup time, and I'm here, and he's like, line cutsies, let's go. Like cheat codes. These are great cheat codes.
I like that. So Graph brings up another great point. Ask for advice and then ask to write different advice in your book. Wait, you have a book, right? Hey guys, get a book. Take notes, write things down. Notes are important. Knights seem to like that. They like to hear themselves talk, and they like when you listen to them talking. Write it down.
Well, I have crappy handwriting, so I'm likely going to stand there while you write your own book.
Yeah. Confirm. All right. So back to business, and then we'll do final thoughts. I think that may have been our final thoughts. We probably have more final thoughts. We can find more thoughts. All right. So this is episode 7 of the original 8 planned. We have 9 planned now, and then we've got 2 more in the works.
2 more in the works, yeah.
2 more in the works, okay. You got 2 weeks to get those done. You're gonna
we
got work to do. It's snuck up on it. All right, so for episode 8, of course, we're talking stick, folks.
Finally. Oh my goodness. Oh, finally we get to talk
15 hours of recording time. We're talking stick for a little bit.
Yeah, actually we're not talking stick.
Okay. So prowess is one of those defining factors. It's the other half of being a knight, or the other part of being a knight that is not franchise, which is the other 7 episodes that we're talking about. But it's an important part. So we'll talk about that some with Duke Uther, I believe.
Yeah, Duke Uther from Glenavon. When we're talking about prowess, this is not really a how-to because let's face it, there are plenty of available resources on the how-to. So we're going to be talking a little bit about what is that standard and what is that standard for each individual unbelted fighter. What level of prowess do you think you need to have? What level of prowess does your kingdom think you need to have to be admitted? That's one of the things we talked about in the first episode, and on what Kapora says. Kapora says right in there that you will be the equal to your prospective peers. And so we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what those standards are. Duke Uther of Glenavon was the first knight of Glenavon. So he has been able to witness all of like the evolution of that standard within his kingdom. Also a good friend of mine, delighted to be having him on. So looking forward to that.
There you go. It'd be interesting too to hear what he coming from Meridies and becoming Glenavon.
Yes,
I'll be interested to hear how that has changed his opinions too as well. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Of course, coming up on Kal-bardr's Corner. So that's okay. So prowess will be 2 weeks from now. We do this every 2 weeks. But next Sunday, I'll be joined by the lovely ladies from the Courtesans Guild for Coffee with Kal. We're talking about courtesans in the SCA. So that'll be a really fun talk of what they are and sort of how they fit into our game. And speaking of games, if you're interested in gaming, every other Wednesday I do What You Playing Wednesday. In this month or this week, I'll be doing Pachisi or Parcheesi if you've seen the more common version. Where I'll be joined by Margavati Bai, who is an amazing Laurel here in Meridies. Also, one of our deputy DEI officers, and is just doing amazing stuff here in the kingdom, and is knows a lot about this game because of her persona. So that's fun. And of course, last but not least, if you're interested in supporting everything we're doing here on KK Productions and all of the channels we support, it is growing day by day. Look us up on Patreon, patreon.com/KK Productions. Get your name on the grand wall of patrons and get some cool rewards that are more stuff's coming. So there you go. All right. That's all my things. Hey, Helga, let's do a show plug. Tell us about your show, Helga.
You want me to talk about my show instead of a different show?
How many shows you want to talk about?
Do both. I don't care. We got time.
Okay, so since I just got thrown under that bus, check out Friday nights on Between Two Peers, where me and my amazing co-host, Sassy Seamstress, or possibly a guest host, depending on the week, discuss life, the universe, and everything concerning the SCA and or sometimes really mundane topics. But it's like shooting the shit around the fire. It's meant to be entertainment and have some fun. We also tackle some of the heavy stuff that comes up during COVID. We try to keep it light while also being jackasses a little bit. So come join us. Have a good time.
Who's your guest this Friday?
This Friday, we actually have our amazing tech crew on Baby Ninja. We're going to be doing Curious later in the series, but Baby Ninja is under the hot plate, and he doesn't get to see the questions before the show.
Nice. They'll actually be on camera instead of just behind it, being snarky.
Instead of just yelling at us behind the mic that we're doing something.
I'm looking forward to giving him shit in the comments on Friday. So. All right. Sean,
there was a request for the dog. I'm going to find the dog.
Go find the dog. Sean, you want to plug a show while she's finding the dog?
Usually, as everybody knows, I am part of the SCA Coaches Corner. Something I'm very, very proud to be part of. This Friday, sorry, I'm kind of looking it up right now. We've got an episode coming up this coming Friday. Sorry, I gotta look at what we've got here. Because we've got a lot of things going on. Okay, cool. Looks like this Friday, is that the 12th? Yeah. We have our monthly conversation with. Once a month, we'll do a conversation with some of the trainers and fighters out there in the known world. And it looks like this Friday, we have Duke Eichbrand from Mid-Realm is going to be coming in to be part of that conversation. Kind of talk to us about his fighting philosophy and his training methodology. So we're very much looking forward to having that. So, but every Friday night, just before Between Two Peers, We have the Coach's Corner, something we've been doing for almost a year now. It's been really great. And again, we're not talking so much about the how-to on this show, because that is one of the shows that we've designed to help make everybody a better trainer and make training and becoming better fighters more accessible to a wider range of people. So yeah, looking forward to that.
There you go. So yeah, that's what you should be. If you're not doing that on Friday, you're missing out. That is a whole lot of knowledge and then a whole lot of fun on a Friday night. So
no doubt.
All right. So Helga, you had another show you want to talk about?
Another show I want to talk about. Hang on.
Talking.
50 pounds this week, so he's my weightlifting regiment.
Right.
So the other show I'd like to talk about in Pimp is Saga Saturday. I absolutely enjoy and love that show. Also, they're going over period texts. They're talking about the different things that come up in them. Somebody's also teething. It's like having a toddler.
It's not me.
What was that?
I said it's not me. I'm not teething.
No, it's definitely
this time.
Sure.
So, and they're doing some really cool stuff. They're also just hilarious.
Yeah.
So if you want some period entertainment that is also just fun to watch, that's them. Hey, Teefs.
Yep.
Teefs.
Yeah, no, yeah. I love their, and this month they're doing Luck. Also, all this stuff is on Norse Luck. So great show. They're just funny people. I couldn't help on a couple of weeks ago, and she was just a delight and just a fount of knowledge. The fact that she has like 3 6-inch binders just for that show is amazing. I don't do that much prep work, so that's frankly I'm sure it shows. But yeah, so you look that up. Saga Saturdays on Facebook. There's a link on the Kal-bardr's Corner page already because I just shared it the other day because they are now a member of the KK Productions family. So there you go. All right. So with all of that, final thoughts. So networking. Networking is important. I'm gonna go first today because I feel entitled. Damn it. So have those conversations. Meet the people. Don't be afraid to ask. If you are afraid to ask, find yourself a weaponized extrovert. There are plenty of us around that love talking to people. Again, there's a reason when I got locked down into COVID, I was like, well, I guess I'm starting a YouTube channel because I was bored and wanted to talk to people. This is how I network. This is how I do this. Find somebody to help you do that, whether it's via Facebook or whether it's via Discords or whether it's in person, just have them drag you to a party. Do that. Find your weaponized extrovert. It makes the difference. Sean?
Ultimately, networking in our society, particularly in as relates to fighting, again, it's a team sport. We're all trying to help each other out, and the relationship itself is the payoff.
Right.
It's not what you could potentially get from that years down the road. Because Joe Blow, unbelted fighter that you have a great time with at Penzic one year, may quit playing after he gets knighted, right? May go on to win, multiple crowns. Who knows? We need to. You don't care about that. I mean, it is the relationship itself that is worthwhile and worth pursuing, and is easy and organic and natural to be part of. But you don't do it for what you might possibly get down the road. It's the relationship is the payoff itself.
Yeah. Helga?
So I think you guys wrapped it up really well. Networking is key to actually getting better. And so I'm just going to harp on this point real quick. It's worthy to get over whatever barrier and hurdle that you personally have by either addressing your own internal fears or finding a weaponized extrovert to help you, or both. Because it always takes time to network. But you need to network to get into the bigger pool of knowledge. You will not access the giant pool of knowledge that is the SCA by living in a microcosm and staying within that microcosm. And so reach out in whatever way possible. Are you remote? Are you out in BFE? Cool. Online resources, online fighting resources. Reach out with video. Learn how to do video analysis. Are you Central Kingdom? Cool, great. Go step out of your camp and introduce yourself to other people. The bigger your network, the bigger the pool of knowledge, the more access you have and the more access you can grant to the next generation. So if I think about it like that, I will reach out when I am scared to death to go introduce to somebody. introduce myself to somebody, because I can tell you that for as extroverted as I am and for as loud and as boisterous as I am, I can guarantee you Duke Sean a couple times has been like, it's okay, you can hang out with me, I think you're cool. And I'm just like, like, so
I was like, wait,
all of us go through the awkward phase. All of us
wait, are you hanging out with me, or am I hanging out with you?
Okay, I would like to know, you've known me since I was like 17 years old. I can guarantee I was the one panicking about hanging out with you, because I sure as fuck was not the cool kid then. So, now that you eat that crow,
Just a dude with a stick.
Ever humble, your grace, ever humble.
Yeah.
But you can see us bantering back and forth like this. By coming into those relationships, eventually you'll cultivate it. And so remember that all of us at some point didn't know anybody. None of us came into this society with a bunch of connections or into that deep pool of knowledge. We had to create it. So help yourself and find ways to do it, because it's worth your time.
There you go. I think that sums it up. So I want to thank, of course, I'll thank to our guests. Helga, you're amazing. I love having you on all of my shows. I've missed your face. You've been so busy recently, and I'm happy to be on camera with you again.
I am very happy to be on camera with you again, too. Also, I believe life has slowed down enough that we can totally schedule some mindfuckery shows.
I love mindfuckeries. So tune in soon for some more Unpack Your Shit with me and Helga. So that's, yeah. I've had so much shit just building up, Helga. We have to unpack it.
Okay, cool. I'm down. Same.
Excellent. Yes.
And Helga, my thanks again. When I wanted to do this particular segment, you were the one person that I really wanted to have to talk about this. You do this so well, and again, you're a great advocate for yourself and for others, being that weaponized extrovert. So thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me.
Thank you for trusting me to have this conversation.
Yeah, and of course, Sean, thank you as always for being amazing, and thank you to all of our viewers for watching. You guys tune in week after week, and we appreciate you greatly for that. But make sure to hit that like button down below, or as Logan says, flat snap that like button. I'm going to keep stealing that from him because I like it. And of course, comment and share and do all the subscribey things. I don't know, YouTube, whatever.
Well, I'm just going to say, for every 10 likes, I'm just going to bring over the Between Two Peers. For every 10 likes on this show, I will feed my dog a treat.
There you go. So likes equals doggo treats. Get that doggo some treats. He's got the bad ears. He's the best. So, all right, guys, we're gonna sign off. This has been Sean, Helga, and Kal in Kal-bardr's Corner. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.